Hey, what is going on, guys? Extra Fusion here, and welcome to the Telltale The Walking Dead TV adaptation series. This is Season 4, Episode 6, which is titled The Blizzard. So this episode starts off with the snow getting really bad until it essentially turns into a full-on blizzard. We're just getting some shots, just letting everyone know that the world right now, they're where they are, the location, it's getting really bad. I mean, obviously, it was a little bit of snow last episode. Now it's like a full-on storm. Back at Ivy's house, Vince, Shell, and Abby are hanging out by the fireplace in the living room. Abby hasn't changed her bloody clothes or taken a shower in a long while, and Ivy comes over and asks if she wants to clean up, but she doesn't say anything. Shell tells Abby that she can get through this. She will. Jane is just hanging out on the front porch as she cleans up her new PPSH weapon that she got from the dead dudes out there. Dave goes outside and sits down next to her, and he asks her if she can show him how to properly kill a walker with a knife, and Jane asks why. Dave says he wants to contribute more, and he's running quite low on his handgun. He'd like to just learn a bit. Jane then sees two walkers creeping around in the snow, and they're kind of getting close to the house, so she says fine and tells him to follow her. Back at the church, the group rests inside as Luke, Nick, Lily, Omid, Clem, and Bonnie discuss plans and how to successfully get back home. Bonnie says Rebecca won't make the trip, but they also need baby formula for AJ and even just a clean diaper at this point. Luke says a couple of them can go back and be back within a few hours, and Marla says it's too bad out there, they'll freeze to death. Luke says they've been through so much, he wouldn't let a little storm be the thing to take him out. Luke also tells everyone about the retribution and everything that's happened with them. Omid asks how Kenny is doing as they look over to see him sitting against the wall drinking a wine. Clem runs over and asks what the hell is he doing, and Kenny says all drunkenly that they might as well have some fun if they're all going to be locked up in here for a while. He got the wine, I guess, from the wine they used for church. It was in one of the back rooms. Clem grabs the bottle from him and smashes it on the floor. She says they need him. She needs him. He can't be drunk for this. Back in the snowy woods with Aaron, Tripp, Sandy, Kyle, and Roman, they are running through these snowy woods as walkers attack from all angles. They are saved from the fact that the walkers are not really able to move all that fast in the snow, but it's still an issue for them. The group themselves struggle to even move through the snow. They find a wooden shed in the woods and all get inside. Walkers surround it, but they try their best to hold back the door from the other walkers trying to break in. Kyle says he doesn't think this was a good idea in the slightest. Back at Ivy's house, Vince looks for Dave as he can't find him. Jane shows Dave how to take out these two walkers. It's very snowy outside, but they still manage. Jane just shows him the kick and stab technique. Vince comes running outside and asks what the hell she is doing as they see him taking out a walker. Jane just says that he wanted to learn, but Vince gets all defensive and tells her not to influence him like that with all this stupid shit during a storm. Jane says it wasn't a problem, there was just two of them, and they got them. Vince tells Dave to get his ass inside as Jane tells him that you aren't his father. You can't boss him around like that, and Vince says he doesn't care. All he's trying to do is keep the people here safe. And Vince asks Jane what she even does for the group. She's always off doing her own thing for the past couple months. Vince walks inside as saying that actually kind of hurt Jane a little bit. She actually feels like offended. Ivy continues to look through the Russian map and she finds paperwork and an address on it that says pickup number 2 with a location. Back at the church, Luke and Nick sit with Rebecca and make her comfortable. Bonnie says the sickness shouldn't be contagious. If it was, someone else would have caught it by now. Luke tells her that she's going to get better. They're gonna get what she needs and she'll be fine. And Rebecca says, you two were a great family, like my own brothers almost. Rebecca tells them how proud Pete would be of them. Sarah brings over AJ and lets Rebecca hold him. Rebecca really doesn't think she's going to make it, but Bonnie tells them both in private that it must be some kind of internal infection. The antibiotics are just not strong enough. The sickness is just fighting it off. But Luke is in denial. He says she's going to be fine. Kenny comes over to the group and starts yelling, saying that they need to head back now or never. They'll all die here, and so will the baby. Clem tries to calm Kenny down, but he walks off saying they can't just stay here. He says they need to get to Wellington, and Luke tells him to calm the fuck down. Kenny just pulls out his revolver and shoots the wooden Jesus cross on the nailed to the cross, that old statue. He starts shooting it up with his revolver as Clem tells him to stop. Nick says you're gonna bring every damn walker in the area on top of us. Kenny calms himself down and walks off back to the choir room. Back at the shed, the group is surrounded as they all try to hold the door back. Roman says we gotta push through, we can't stay here. But Tripp comes up with the idea as he takes his M16 and starts smashing the back of his M16 at the top of the wooden roof of the shed as he makes a hole. And he climbs up through it, gets on top of the roof, and he looks off into the walkers surrounding the shed all around in the woods. He tells them there's a small gap and that the snow will slow them down so he can lead them away. Sandy calls him crazy, but he tells her to stay back and let him do this. Tripp just does it. He jumps past his walkers through the gap, starts running down through the woods, giving the group an opening as they run as well. Back at the house, Ivy shows Vince and Shell the pickup spot thing on the map and says maybe there's supplies there, but Vince says he'll check it out once everyone returns and once this damn blizzard stops, because they're definitely not going out there right now. They're clearly worried about the others, but they think they'll be alright. They're not too worried. Back at the church, Kenny sits by himself in the choir room again. He's just thinking about life and he's pissed. Suddenly, he hears a large tree cracking outside as the winds start to pick up during this blizzard and get really, really bad. He looks outside and he sees a tree, a big-ass tree. I'm talking a thick one, tall too. Like this is it's a monster, right? Comes down, crashes down straight through the church's roof. The group is startled as a tree rips a hole through the entire church, allowing walkers to get inside that came to the area because of Kenny's gunshots, as well as snow and cold air just blowing inside of this church through this roof that they can now get through. Bonnie runs to get Rebecca, as does Marla and Richard to help Jordan. Luke, Nick, Lily, Omid, and Clem fight off the walkers as Clem runs to the choir room to see the whole room almost collapsed in by this tree. She sees Kenny on the floor. The tree didn't hit him, but there's a lot of debris over him, so she helps him up as a walker comes through the outdoors, grabs his foot, but she fires her suppressed pistol at the walker in the head. Clem and Kenny get up and try to return to the others in the main section of the church, but walkers are now surrounding the entirety of the inside of the church. They've gotten pretty quick. Everyone has retreated outside. Clem's hair is suddenly grabbed by a walker from behind as Kenny quickly stabs the walker in the head with his machete. The blizzard gets worse and worse, making it harder for the walkers to move, but also harder for our characters to move. Kenny and Clem walk together outside. They can't see 5 feet in front of them. A walker approaches them. Clem shoots it in the head. Rebecca keeps AJ warm as she walks with Bonnie. They call out for the others as a walker suddenly grabs Bonnie's leg as she falls over. Rebecca can't see where Bonnie went. She's just looking everywhere. She's turning all around, and you can tell she's looking really, really sick right now. It's not good for her right now at all. Rebecca can't see. Marlo and Richard walk down the road, and they help Jordan walk, of course, and Luke and Nick hear Sarah screaming as she is attacked by 2 walkers, but they save her and get a move on. Lily and Omid stay close to one another. Everyone just keeps calling out names, and it's basically impossible to see through this storm. On the road, Tripp walks through the blizzard as he reaches a house, and he gets inside to rest for a minute. He is suddenly attacked by a walker from inside of the kitchen of this house, tumbles over the counter. He's exhausted. He sees a thing of canned beans on the floor, grabs it, smashes into the walker's head with the canned beans. Tripp looks outside and sees Aaron, Sandy, Kyle, and Roman walking as he meets back up with them, so they're good, they're together, and they're headed back home. Back with the church group, Bonnie kills the walker that grabbed her as she gets up and looks around to find the others. Clem and Kenny keep moving through the snow. It's very foggy, of course. They can't see too far in front of them, but they hear AJ crying, so they move to the crying, and they come across Rebecca sitting on the floor against a small boulder. She's holding AJ, and her face is pure white. Clem quickly goes up to check on her. She's barely moving. The cold is killing her. Her face begins to form ice crystals, and her eyes become bloodshot. Clem takes AJ out of her arms, tells Kenny they have to help her. Bonnie comes over as well and sees what has happened. Rebecca can barely breathe anymore. Her lungs are shutting down. Bonnie holds Rebecca's hand as Kenny shows a complete look of guilt in his eyes. He's pissed off, yells out as he sees 5 walkers coming their way, and he slices them up. Clem tells Kenny to chill, but he just does it anyways, kills the 5 walkers. Rebecca finally shuts down, dead. Bonnie's tearing up a little bit, and Clem is too. Clem tells Bonnie that they have to put her down, and Kenny pulls out his knife and tells him to go now. Clem says they need to stick together, but Kenny says he'll catch up. They walk off as Kenny puts the knife through the back of her skull. He breaks down in tears because this is technically his fault. They wouldn't have to leave right away if he didn't start shooting, so the walkers came. Luke, Nick, and Sarah meet up with Marla, Richard, Jordan, Lily, and Omid. Luke says they have to go back for the others, as Lily says they could be ahead of them, and if not, they have to trust that they'll make it back. We can't be out here any longer. They move on down the road, headed back home. At Ivy's house, Shell looks out the window, worried, as she sees Tripp's group return. They all get inside as Ivy starts up a fire to keep them all warm. Aaron tells them what happened. He says chances are the others are dead, or referring to the Russians, of course, not the others in the group, because he obviously tells them what happened, that they were surrounded by this truck and things were not looking too good. The other group returns as well, with Luke and the others, of course not Kenny or Clem or Bonnie, and they need to be warmed up more than anyone, and Luke is freaking out when they say the others haven't made it back yet. He quickly runs back outside and says they gotta go, as Nick stops him and says they'll be looking forever. Luke then hears AJ crying from the blizzard fog as Clem holding AJ, Kenny, and Bonnie return. Luke looks around and says, "Where's Rebecca?" The group can't even answer. He asks again, but this time louder. Clem tells him she didn't make it. Luke throws down his AK-47 at the ground and he puts his hand on his knees while looking to the floor. He's pissed. Everyone in the group is just upset about it. Luke looks around and says, "What happened?" And pretty much Bonnie says she just couldn't handle the cold. Then Luke looks back up, looks right to Kenny, realizing that this is all Kenny's fault, and that's what Kenny says. This is what Luke says to Kenny, "This is all your fucking fault." Kenny says they had to go, but Luke just runs up to him and punches Kenny right in the face. Bonnie tries to stop it as the others yell at him to stop fighting. Once Kenny gets up, grabs Luke and throws him into the snow. Luke says she doesn't have to die all because your fucking anger issues, and Luke gives Kenny a few good punches as Kenny kicks him in the balls and punches him multiple times in the face and grabs him, tosses him into the Jeep, and they have this full-on fight right outside in the front yard. And Vince and Aaron have to come over and break it up. Nick is just standing there with tears on his face. He didn't even get involved in the fight. It's pretty damn bad, and Luke just pushes Vince off of him as he just walks back inside after they broke up the fight. Kenny just sits in the snow as the storm begins to stop. We see Jane in the backyard during all of this, looking off to the group. She has a bag full of food and supplies, as well as her PPSH. She just heads off without saying anything to the group. Dave catches her, though, and asks where she is going, and Jane says just away. Dave asks why, and Jane says this isn't for her. This group is cracking. She's seen stuff like this happen before. They'll drag her down, and it never goes well in the end. Dave asks what about Luke, and she says there's nothing between them. She doesn't belong here. She never did. She tells him to stay safe as she walks off. A mini montage plays as the night comes. Everyone is relaxing, hanging out around the house. Luke is sleeping as Bonnie walks in and tells him he needs to have his face patched up, but Luke says he's fine. Dave comes over to the group when they're all just chilling in the living room, and he lets everyone know about Jane. Everyone is confused. Ivy notices one of her supplies bags missing as well. Vince gets up from the couch and goes to his bedroom, and he does that because he realized that he was yelling at Jane, so maybe it's partially his fault for why she left. Clem stands in the bathroom looking at herself in the mirror. She starts cutting her hair to be a bit shorter all by herself. She's cutting her hair because she got it pulled earlier from that one walker, reminding her of what Lee taught her back in the day to keep her hair short just so she can't get it pulled by any walkers or people. And she's just looking off, just thinking about Lee, thinking about the past, thinking about everything. And it's a pretty good scene. And then we see Baricco and Vitali with the other 4 Russians alive, walking down the snowy road after the blizzard, and they reach a sign in the road. It's nighttime now when they're doing this, right? They find a sign in the road titled Pickup Number 2, of course what they were reading on the what Ivy was reading on the map, what was labeled. And they open a crate that's on the floor. And in this crate, there's a ton of ammunition, tons of it, for their weapons. And Baricco smiles because he realizes he knows what they're going to be doing with this ammo. So, that is the end of the episode. Hopefully you all enjoyed. Next week is, of course, episode 7, which I'll just give you guys the title for next week's episode. It's going to be titled Amid the Ruins, which is, of course, the title of Season 2, Episode 4 of the game. And you'll see why it's titled Amid the Ruins. There's reasons for that. And we're getting into some of the more exciting stuff of the season. The season's kind of been interesting so far. I've noticed a lot of people have been, saying it's been a little slow and stuff like that. And that's because it's supposed to be, We went off Season 3 with finishing it off with this really intense war between these killers. I needed to slow the story down so we can give these characters breathing room, so we can give these characters bonding moments and development, so their interactions later on make more sense. And I'm slowly just introducing this Russian New Frontier arc as well, just so we can kind of, have a better arc finish off. But next episode is pretty damn good, I gotta say. I really, really do like next week's episode. So be on the lookout for that. Hopefully you all enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.